Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the March 22nd, 2012 Pittsburgh Board of Public Education Legislative Meeting. Before we begin this evening, I'd like to ask everyone to please turn off all cell phones and pagers or put them on vibrate. Would everyone please rise so we can salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There are no Distinguished Achievement Awards this evening. Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brentley. Mr. Brentley is here, but he's not yet arrived. Mrs. Kalasi?
Here.
Mrs. Fink?
Here.
Dr. Hawley?
Here.
Mr. Eisler?
Present.
Mr. McCray?
Here.
Ms. Shealy?
Here.
Mr. Sumter?
Present.
Mrs. Azuda?
Here. Thank you, Mr. Weiss. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Sumter to please share our core beliefs and commitments.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. In an effort to improve the governance of this board, we have adopted goals, core beliefs, and commitments. In going over the commitments, the Pittsburgh Board of Education will educate all children to their highest level of academic achievement. The Pittsburgh Board of Education is committed to providing a safe and orderly environment for all students and employees. Pittsburgh Board of Education is committed to providing efficient and effective support for all students, families, teachers, and administrators. Pittsburgh Board of Education is committed to distributing resources in an efficient and equitable manner to address all needs of all students to the maximum extent feasible. And last but not least, the Pittsburgh Board of Education is committed to improving public confidence and encouraging strong parent-community engagement in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Will everyone please turn to the minutes from last month? Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to the February 25th, 2012 legislative meeting? Eisler, Kalasi, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Okay. And there was a special legislative meeting on March 5th. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions? Eisler, Kalasi, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, those are approved. At this time, I'd like to read the executive session statement. In addition to executive sessions announced at the legislative meeting of February 22nd, 2012, the board met in executive sessions on March 4th, 2012, March 5th, 2012, and March 14th, 2012, and immediately before this legislative meeting to discuss various personnel matters that may include, but are not limited to, administrative vacancies and positions opened and closed. Finally, at the executive session immediately before this legislative meeting, the board discussed student discipline cases that involve violations of various portions of the Code of Student Conduct. The board does not vote at executive session. We'll move to the committee reports, but first, would you please go to page 11 of 11 of the Education Committee, and I will give you the student suspension, transfer, and expulsion numbers for this month. There were 65 students suspended for 4 to 10 days, no students suspended for 4 to 10 days and transferred to another Pittsburgh public school, 7 students expelled out of school for 11 days or more, no students expelled out of school for 11 days or more and transferred to another Pittsburgh public schools. Before we begin with questions and comments, Dr. Lane, I believe you want to pull one.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Azuda. We would ask the board to please pull item 6. It is on page 4 of 11. It is beginning with second paragraph, and it's entitled Agreement with Brown Paper Tickets in Pittsburgh Kappa 6 through 12.
Thank you, Dr. Lane. We'll begin with questions and comments with you, Mr. Brentley.
page 11, I think it's page 11, number 13, if I'm not mistaken. That is no, that doesn't make sense. So it's got to be the other, page 9 of 11, that's where it got mixed up. Dr. Lane, I just want to ask again that for the recommendations for the 2 charter schools, did you and your staff follow all the necessary procedures for the evaluation process for both schools?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And your team also communicated with both schools on its recommendations and its findings?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and there was some dialogue or some discussion prior between the two, as well as a on-site visit that also took place, I understand.
Yes, an on-site visit is a part of it. While the team is there, typically they do meet with the leaders of the charter school, and the charter school leader is responsible for scheduling those meetings.
Okay. The second, thank you, Doctor. Also, just a question of clarification from our agenda review, and this is page 11, and this was number 1, and my colleague, Dr. Holly, raised a question concerning, I guess, number 14, 1 and 2, if this allowed enough time for that transition period for some of the schools. And I just ask, has the staff given any consideration to the comments made by our educator on the board, Dr. Holly?
Yes, Mr. Brentley.
And is it necessary, or have we considered any adjustment at all, or
We don't believe it's necessary, Mr. Brentley. We believe this is adequate time.
okay. All right, that's it, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you. All my questions were answered at agenda review.
Thank you, Mrs. Fink. Okay, Dr. Holly.
Item number 14 on page 11, I am going to say that I think that the schools need a little bit more, they need more days, especially for those schools that we will not have access to after June 30th, unless I'm wrong. So I wanted to ask, will Rosenstein be available to Obama after June 30th?
We will be in the process of moving in all the materials and items out of Reisenstein, so our staff will be in the building almost immediately upon school leaving. If someone needed to get to the building, I don't think we have a problem having someone getting into the building.
Thank you. We were just concerned about that because with so many people, so many students being moved and staff as well, we just wanted to make sure that we were able to get as much as we could out of that building, because after we're gone, it's just going to be demolished. So we just want to make sure that everything that's usable, that we can take it with us over to Peabody.
Everything the principal wants to move to Peabody for the Peabody program will move. Everything that we need in the district will move out of there also, and we'll have it for other schools to use.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Holly. Mr. Eisler.
No, Mrs. Azuda, all my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Mr. McCray. Mr. Sumter.
No further comments or questions?
Ms. Shealy.
No, thank you.
Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Brentley,
Yes.
Mrs. Khaleesi,
Yes.
Mrs. Fink,
Yes.
Dr. Holly,
Yes.
Mr. Eisler,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Ms. Shealy,
Yes.
Mr. Sumter,
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda.
Yes.
Report's approved unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. We'll now move on to the committee report on business and finance submitted by Mrs. Khaleesi, Business Chair, and Mr. McCray, Finance Chair, and their committee. Are there any questions or comments that were not addressed at agenda review? Mr. Brentley.
Number number 3, page 404, and this is the contract with Falk Education Services to obtain and purchase removal services from the school district's obsolete textbooks and library books. And I raised some comments at the agenda review, and I want to reiterate before we execute the contract, Dr. Lane, that if you would reach out to Reading is Fundamental, the Martin Luther King Reading Center located in the Hill District, and the Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council to allow all of these agencies to go through any and all of the books that we're planning on giving away or demolishing or recycling, to allow them to see if there's anything that's usable for their programs. And I think they all would appreciate a phone call. So I'm asking that you would make that call or send them a letter, set up some kind of viewing that would allow them to come in and inventory what we have, and then allow them to take whatever they need. So is that something we can make sure that we can do, Doctor, before this contract is executed?
I believe so, Mr. Brentley, but I do have to check one thing. I know that in my previous life, there was a board policy around how that had to be done, and I need to make sure that we follow whatever our policy is in regard to that. I'll check that, but if it's possible, we'll do it.
Okay. Well, you know, if there, and I'm not, Mr. Weiss, are you familiar with the policy or the procedures that would require us to give books away to a nonprofit organization?
I'm not aware of a specific policy. If books or any other personal property have no value, then the board can do that. But I'll review the policy and advise Dr. Lane if there are any impediments to what you've requested.
Okay. Because I want to make sure this takes place, so is it necessary that I actually put a motion on the floor to assure that that would happen?
No,
Your
it'll be
office will take
done.
any-
It'll be done, and I'll advise Dr. Lane accordingly.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Khaleesi.
I have, just, you know what, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fink. Dr. Hawley.
No questions.
Mr. Eisler.
Questions have all been answered, thank you.
Mr. McCray. Mr. Sumter. Ms. Shealy.
Just a comment, thank you, Mrs. Azuda. At agenda review, I made mention of under purchasing report, inquiry 8703-1 regarding diesel fuel. The agenda book or the legislative book reads that this is low sulfur diesel. Mr. Camarda, I just wanted to thank you for following up with me and providing me the information on the bid. It's actually spec'd for ultra low sulfur diesel, which makes us compliant with all federal code regulations. So I just wanted to thank Mr. Camarda for the additional information.
And that's what I was just going to say. Mr. Weiss, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Brentley,
Yes.
Mrs. Khaleesi,
Yes.
Mrs. Fink,
Yes.
Dr. Hawley,
Yes.
Mr. Eisler,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Ms. Shealy,
Yes.
Mr. Sumter,
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda.
Yes.
Report's approved unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Let's move on to the report on personnel from Mrs. Jean Fink and her committee. That includes addendums A, B, and C that are before you. Are there any questions on the personnel report at this time? Mr. Brentley.
You know, I am going to just, no, give me a second.
All right, Mrs. Khaleesi.
No questions, thank you.
Mrs. Fink. Dr. Hawley.
I'm fine now.
Mr. Eisler.
How were you 5 minutes ago? No further questions, thank you.
Mr. McCray.
I just want to recognize and thank our employees that are serving the military for a job well done. Thank you.
Mr. Sumter.
No questions or comments?
Ms. Shealy.
No, thank you.
Mr. Brentley.
Dr. Lane, I just wanted to double check. Where are we in terms of the recall, if that's the proper word, for our custodians to come back to work in the facilities?
I'm going to ask Ms. Spolar maybe if she can give some information. I know we have had some recalls. I'm not sure if we fully recalled everyone.
I believe that all of the regular custodians who were furloughed are back in some capacity. whether it be filling in for individuals who are out sick or on vacation. But we have been able to get most of them employed in some fashion.
Thank you. And Ms. Bowler, if we can, and I don't know if you have a system out there, I know since the beginning of the year, it's been a strain on a few of our workers. I'm not sure how you do it, but it would be great to get some feedback as to some suggestions and/or recommendations over the last 5 or 6 months from some of those individuals. So I don't know if we can put up a suggestion box. Maybe there are some suggestions where we can overlap or kind of tweak some things. But if there's an opportunity for the foreman or the supervisor there to kind of engage some of the individuals, because I'm sure, I know I've heard some things, what they would share with me in terms of having to do a half a day here, then another day there, or a half a week here, and so on. And so it's just something that I think that would kind of help the district run a little better if there's an opportunity to exchange some views and some suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote on this committee on personnel, please?
Mr. Brentley,
Yes.
Mrs. Khaleesi,
Yes.
Mrs. Fink,
Yes.
Dr. Hawley,
Yes.
Mr. Eisler,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Ms. Shealy,
Yes.
Mr. Sumter,
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda.
Yes.
Report's approved unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Let's go to the financial and controller reports. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. Eisler?
Thanks, Mrs. Azuda. Mr. Camarda, I want to thank you for getting this report to us in, I think, probably record time. I think you're probably about 30 days ahead of schedule. And I have a recommendation. I mean, I have a couple questions for you and a recommendation for Mr. McCray, who chairs this committee. I think, one of the interesting things about the way this board works and the way our fiscal year works, we close out one fiscal year, and we're already working on a budget for the next. And I think that it is important, given the work that the superintendent and her team is doing on building a sustainable district, that we really closely take a look at the closing, what we look like as of December 31st, because it's going to impact the budget that you prepare and start to present to us in the next couple months. Obviously, on your 12-month rolling forward, the figures look good. The encumbrances are the one negative, but that's always going to be a negative because we're all going to have expenditures that we haven't covered for the given fiscal year. But I think it's important that we take a look at taxes. The interesting thing is that we're paying a lot more locally than we were before. I think that it is good that this be put out to the public so everybody knows how education is funded in the Commonwealth and what the commitment is to the citizens of this city, to the Pittsburgh Public Schools. And also have an extensive talk on where we think the governor's budget's going to be. So I would like to see this turned over for a very early Finance Committee, Mr. McCray, that we take a very close look and close presentation. And although I love the pie chart on expenses, I think we're going to have to get just a tad bit larger in terms of the colors in the code. So I would welcome a healthy discussion with the board, and also knowing that it will be picked up hopefully and put into press. So thank you, and thanks for getting this out to us, and it looks really good. You did a good job, and we actually closed better than we thought. Correct? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. There are no new business items in our legislative agenda this evening. Are there any items to be brought before the board at this time that require board approval? Mr. Brentley.
Yes, I have a couple of items. I just want to mention one little. No, you said? Board approval. Not, okay, not approval, not a board approval.
Okay. Mrs. Khaleesi. No. Mrs. Fink. Dr. Hawley. No. Mr. Eisler, Mr. McCray, Mr. Sumter, Ms. Shealy. Okay, now announcements, general information. Go ahead, Mr. Brentley.
Yes, I just wanted to congratulate I believe, Vicki Thomas, who's a finalist in a pageant, and I'll take a second to just read this. Vicki Thomas is I believe, 9, a fourth grader at Pittsburgh Roosevelt's K-5, then is a state finalist for the National American Miss Pennsylvania pageant in Harrisburg this August. Vicki will be competing in the junior preteen age division along with other young women from across the state for a $1,000 cash award, the official crown, and an official crown and banner, a bouquet of roses, and ear transportation to compete in the national pageant in California. And I just wanted to say, when I glanced at this earlier today, that I noticed she was one of our students, and I just want to wish her well, and we hope that she's able to bring something home to the district. I also want to suggest to my colleagues that I'd like to put something forward later on this month. And I think I've shared it with some of the board members, and that is the possibility of a Pittsburgh Public Schools educational summit. And that is an event where we would do nothing more but to, if it's a Saturday morning, to come together, to put together in one document and to lay out for the public all of the changes that has been proposed and that was getting ready to take place come September. We, in my opinion, we are kind of all over the boards, from name changing to school structures, to closing schools, to reopening schools, change of transportation, and I think at the very least we can provide a document to give to the parents and the taxpayers at this event, and I'm hoping it would be an all-day event. We could have catered food for those who are in attendance, invite the public, but I just think that we have to do a little bit more than just come here and vote. We have to find a way to really engage the public and to bring them forward. This last public hearing, I think, was one of those areas that really showed us that there's a disconnect between what happens at this table and what's going on in the community. And when we begin to tamper with some of our very, very successful programs, something's not right. And so I am asking, we'll find a way to put something on the table. Hope all of you will support it, and then we can authorize this staff to move forward to begin to address the issues. My final comment I just want to mention, and I'm going to direct this to our solicitor, Mr. Weiss, there is a possibility that this board will begin changing its structure on how we run part of our meetings, and I'd like to ask you when those details will be prepared and when they will be shared with the public.
I expect to meet with the board president to work out a statement of these procedures, and we would plan to, after that's done, release it to the public so the public could be aware of these changes. I would expect to do that no later than early April.
Thank you very much, and I do want to say, for this record and for the very, very future record, I am in total opposition of the proposed recommendations and delivery of information at this board to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you. I just want to take the opportunity to, first of all, thank everybody at Brashear and Mr. Franklin and Dr. Lippert for the wonderful opportunity. I was at Brashear this past week, and I got to see firsthand the EET work that is going on in the building. It is phenomenal work. I was so impressed not only with the school, I must tell you, it is the first time I was in that building. I had the opportunity to walk around. I was so unbelievably impressed with the students, the staff. The atmosphere was very positive. I had the opportunity to enjoy a few students that were very frank and very comical in many ways. It was very interesting to hear their personal point of views of how last year compares to this year. And I have to tell everybody, and I think it's important that everybody knows, that they feel that last year compared to this year is a major difference. They feel their staff, the teachers are much, much more involved in their lives, in their educational lives, as well as their personal lives. It was very, very impressive. I was just really, really impressed. I was able to sit into one of the CRI meetings. I did a walk around. There is some amazing work going on, and this board should be very proud of supporting that work and supporting those individuals, including the students. I mean, the students are very, you could tell they're reacting to it, and they're appreciative of everything that's going on in that building. Any comments that I had outside of what I just said to you, I've shared with Dr. Lane and with Dr. Lippert and with Mr. Franklin, and even Ms. Spolar. But I encourage all of you, if you have the opportunity, to go up there and just take a walk around. I think you'll be so impressed on how well it is happening. And as that work continues and it spreads throughout the district, I think everybody will realize that the work that we've been doing is, and when I say we, I mean we've encouraging staff to continue. You'd be so impressed and you'd be so excited about. And next week I go to King, so I get to see the lower levels of that work being done. It's not easy work, so everybody needs to know that this is not easy work, and it is very hard, but it is definitely showing signs. And when the students tell you that, that's how you know. That's how you know, when the students are very vocal and very confident in talking about it. So I really think that we need to commend Brashear and staff and all the work that's been done, and those teachers and everybody else in that building, because it is phenomenal, phenomenal work. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mrs. Fink. Dr. Hawley.
Just a few announcements. I want to say, give a shout out to Obama for being on the high Q, I guess that's what it's called, for representing our school district so well in the competition. We didn't win, but we came close. We were in second place, but we came close. Obama, hometown high Q.
Thank you. Okay.
Also, that Obama also is the school that won the African American Bowl for the city of Pittsburgh, so we're excited about that as well. We will be having an East End, not an East End, let me take that back. We will be having a District 2 community meeting at Barack Obama International Studies. As one of the parents told me at our last PSCC council meeting, he wants me to start using the full name, the real name. Barack Obama Academy of International Studies. We will have our meeting there April 26th from 6 to 8. I'm hoping that all of the schools that are in District 2, that you will come out and join us for a meeting of your principals, of the principals in District 2, and for the fine work that they're doing, and any questions and answers that you want from me as your new board member. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Last evening, I had the opportunity to participate in a recognition ceremony with the United Way of Allegheny County, and I was floored because they were recognizing people who participate in the United Way's volunteer efforts, two which benefit our children directly, one be a sixth grade mentor and the other Everybody Wins, which is a RIF program. And our staff in this district was recognized for their volunteer efforts in the Be a Sixth Grade Mentor program. I knew that Dr. Lane was a sixth grade mentor. I didn't realize it went as deep into the district as it does. And I think it's stunning that we have staff that works hard all day and still finds time to go into the classroom to be with students. And Mr. May Stein and Ms. Burgess were there to represent us. And it was a really good reflection on the Pittsburgh Public Schools. There was a lot of reaction about, I thought we were doing this for you, and what are you here for? And it was really great. And just to say that Be a Sixth Grade Mentor and Everybody Wins, which is going to be, there's a lot of people going to be reading at Faison and for the rest of the year. Those programs are still wide open. Call the United Way. Please volunteer. Our students really benefit from the program. And to Dr. Lane and her staff, thank you for your work. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Mr. McCray. Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Hill District Education Council met last evening, and there were some pretty positive reports. Suspensions are down in the schools within the Hill District, Miller, Wow, and University Preparatory School at Margaret Malines. And one thing, it was interesting to see that the principal from Brashear and the principal from University Preparatory School at Margaret Malines are working together on the receipt of the Hill District's children that are coming back from Brashear that are going to UPrep. I hate to shorten it, but University Preparatory School at Margaret Malines, just say it. But they're working together in a collaborative manner, and there's a lot of good things happening in the schools in the Hill District. And on April the 19th at 6 p.m., Dr. Linda Lane will be the featured speaker at the Hill District Education Council meeting. So to give you the heads up on that, and that'll be at 6 p.m., and it will be at University Preparatory School at Margaret Malines. The other thing I wanted to announce is to give folks the heads up. Parents for the Promise Luncheon. This is going to be held on Wednesday, May 23rd at 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m., and it'll be at the Rivers Club, 1 Oxford Center on the 4th level. There is a cost. It's $35 per person. You can RSVP by May 18th. You can register online at pittsburghpromise.org/parents. And if you want additional information, you can call 412-281-7605. That's 412-281-7605, or you can email promiseparents@gmail.com. Hopefully I'll get the opportunity to announce that again before that event takes place. And as always, we're asking everyone to invest in our future, and please give to the Pittsburgh Promise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Ms. Shealy? No? I just have two quick things. Last week, Dr. Rudiak let us know that there was an event taking place at Phillips School. It was their 10th Fiesta celebration. And every year, I guess the first one started 10 years ago while she was there. And every year they focus on a different Spanish-speaking country, and this year was Puerto Rico. And my daughter and I got to go, and it was just phenomenal to just see that many parents, staff, kids. The kids had a ball. And we were just smiling watching the kids smile because they were having such a good time. So a shout out to the entire staff at Phillips. The other thing is this Saturday, March 24th, from 8:30 to 1, A+ schools in conjunction with BPEP, Communities for Teaching Excellence, Northside Community Alliance, and Education Voters of Pennsylvania are sponsoring a summit. It's called Building Community Commitment to Effective Teaching. It is being held at Eastminster Presbyterian Church, 250 North Highland. And again, it is to focus, it's 8:30 to 1, and it's focusing on our effective teaching and the work we're doing in that. And it is open to the community, and everyone is encouraged to attend. Very educational and an opportunity to hear some more what's going on and voice your opinion. If there are no other concerns, a motion to adjourn? All right, we'll go with Eisler Khaleesi. Just keep it for the night. Meeting's adjourned. Give us a minute. We'll move on to the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit meeting.
She's ready.
Everybody ready? I'd like to call the March 21st, 2012 meeting of the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit to order. Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call?
Mr. Brentley? Here. Mrs. Khaleesi?
Here.
Mrs. Fink?
Here.
Dr. Holly?
Here.
Mr. Eisler?
Present.
Mr. McCray?
Here.
Ms. Shealy?
Here.
Mr. Sumter?
Present.
Mrs. Azuda?
Here.
All members present.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Will board members please turn to the minutes from last month? Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions?
Second.
Well, let's go with Khaleesi Shealy on that one. All those in favor? It was close. Okay. That was the minutes for February 25th. Oh, one abstention. Thank you. We have one abstention on the vote for the meeting for February 25th, 2012. The minutes. Okay, we'll go to the Committee on Education. This committee report on education is before us, submitted by Ms. Shealy, Chair, and her committee. Are there any questions that were not addressed at agenda review? If so, please put up your hand, and we'll go on. Okay, seeing none, Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mrs. Khaleesi?
Yes.
Mrs. Fink?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler? Yes. Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Ms. Shealy?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
Report's approved.
Okay, let's move on to the committee report on business that's before us, submitted by Mrs. Khaleesi, Business Chair, and Mr. McCray, Finance Chair, and their committee. Are there any questions or comments that were not addressed at agenda review? Seeing none, Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Brentley? Yes. Mrs. Khaleesi?
Yes.
Mrs. Fink?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Ms. Shealy?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
Report's approved.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Let's now move to the personnel report that's before us. Are there any questions or comments on this report at this time? Mrs. Khaleesi.
I just want to quickly ask, there's a resignation in the personnel meeting, in the personnel report. Is there going to be a replacement for this individual, or will you not be replacing this?
She actually was furloughed in 2006 and retired from the Pittsburgh Public Schools, but she was on our seniority list. So she had to, once she retired from Pittsburgh Public Schools, she had to resign from
I see.
the IU.
So it's a technical thing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Brentley? Yes. Mrs. Khaleesi?
Yes.
Mrs. Fink?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Ms. Shealy?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
Report's
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Are there any other items to be? All right, Eisler, and we'll go with Fink on that one. All those in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening.